A deadly scream erupts from the chaos in the room, followed by the shattering of glasses on the clock. It is none other than Oskar, the 3-year-old boy, stunning every family member into stupefied silence. It is the first time this little boy discovers that he has superpowers, and obviously, he doesn't mean to terrify his family, but simply wants to protect his tin drum from being taken away by his father. From the moment Oskar fully grasps his newfound superpowers, he employs them to exact revenge on those who have belittled him. As the years go by, his actions escalate, and he commits several heinous crimes resulting in the death of his family members. You may wonder how a seemingly innocent 3-year-old can overpower others, including adults. In truth, his true power lies not only in his superhuman abilities, but also in his cunning ability to conceal his true identity. The one who is worthy of hatred is also deserving of pity, and it all begins with Oskar right before the outbreak of the Second World War in Poland. One day, a woman named Anna is working in the field when a stranger comes running. Twitter. The man introduces himself as Joseph, and anxiously she explains that she needs help hiding from the cops, chasing after him without a second thought. Anna allows him to hide under her skirts. The plan simply works and fobs off the police when they arrive right under Honor. From that day on, they become inseparable, and eventually get married. A year later, they give birth to a daughter, and life seems perfect until the police finally find Joseph and surround Murray Lake. One day, they start firing at him. Left with no options, Joseph has to jump into the lake to escape. It's the last time anyone sees him. Some believe he drowns to death in the water, while others believe he flees to America and becomes a successful businessman. After Joseph is gone, Anna has difficulty raising their daughter alone. She sells geese, vegetables, and even sometimes her body to generate income. With all the harsh moments in her life, she is able to bring up her daughter Agnes. By age 16, Agnes has grown into a beautiful lady. Many men are alert to her, but she is in a secret affair with her cousin January. They spend most of their intimate time together. However, in order to avoid suspicion, Agnes ties the knot with a German chef, Alfred, to get married, while Agnes remains underground with January. A few months later, Agnes gives birth to a boy named Oskar. However, no one knows whose son Oskar is. It remains a mystery forever. Oskar keeps crying as if he doesn't, but he immediately stops when hearing Agnes promise to give him a tin drum when he turns 3. The 3 adults live their polyandry lives happily for the next few years. When Oskar turns 3 at his birthday party, as promised, Agnes gets him a toy drum, making him super excited. Oskar carries his drum, parading around the house, completely ignoring the ongoing birthday celebration. However, when he notices his uncle, he becomes hateful and disgusted. Later that night, Oskar jumps from the staircase and sustains serious injuries. His family rushes him to the hospital as soon as they find out. However, the doctor diagnoses him with ruptured brain parts that kin or physical growth. Oskar's dream comes true. Oskar recovers and is discharged from the hospital. From that point on, he carries his tin drum with him wherever he goes, and aims whatever he does. In short, he never removes the drum from his body, whether at home, the market, or even school. Seeing Oskar's obsession with his tin drum, one day Alfred finally becomes enraged and snatches the drum away from him. However, when Oskar unleashes a deadly scream and shatters the glasses, the family realizes that he has superpowers and decides to let him be to avoid trouble. Time passes quickly, but not for Oskar's body. Another 3 years go by, and his height hasn't grown an inch. His drum is still with him at all times. One day at school, his teacher tries to take it away, resulting in Oskar screaming loudly and hurting his classmates with his scream. Realizing their son's obsession with the drum and lack of physical growth, Agnes and Alfred become worried and take him to various doctors in the city, but none find a cure. Eventually, the family accepts their fate and treats Oskar normally. Despite being treated well at home, Oskar is often bullied by his peers. To get away from it, his mother takes him on trips to the city and leaves him at a toy shop with the owner who repairs his drums or even makes new ones. Oskar is happiest during these times, unaware that his mother is using him as an excuse to meet her lover January, who works at a local post office, until one day Oskar catches his mom in the act. However, he suppresses his rage and chooses to ignore them, because it simply wants to continue being a kid and play with his tin drum. Oskar continues to pretend to be unaware of his mother's affair with January for another 6 years, solely focused on his selfish obsession with his drum. As each day passes, he remains unchanged, still looking as he did when he turned 3 years old. One day, his parents take him to a circus where a group of dwarves are performing. Witnessing the small individuals on the stage, the two adults suddenly realize something. After the show concludes, Oskar has an encounter with the leader of the dwarves. Finally, he feels a sense of belonging as he sees others who resemble him. Oskar proudly demonstrates his ability to scream, leaving the leader impressed. In response, the leader extends an invitation for Oskar to join their group and travel the world. However, before he can respond, his parents approach wearing ashamed expressions and swiftly take him away from the dwarf leader. Meanwhile, the Second World War breaks out and Warsaw faces intense Nazi attacks. Countless Jews are persecuted, leading to a mass exodus. Marcus, the toy shop owner, is revealed to be Jewish and decides to flee to London as soon as possible. Having developed a fondness for Agnes and Oskar, he intends to take them along. However, when Marcus shares the plan with Agnes, she adamantly refuses and abruptly leaves his shop, never to return again. Several weeks later, chaos engulfs Poland as the Soviet Union joins the invasion, leaving the local population feeling helpless. The war deeply affects Agnes, and Oskar's constant pranks further worsen their already fragile mood. Little does Oskar know that his obsession with the tin drum will be the primary cause of his mother's death in the future. Agnes, who had a strong aversion and allergy to fish, unexpectedly begins consuming large quantities of raw fish. Despite growing concerns from her family, they are unable to prevent her from doing so. Tragically, the excessive consumption of raw fish leads to her demise as her digestive system collapses due to severe food poisoning. Many friends and relatives come to wave their last goodbyes at her funeral. Marcus shows up, but unfortunately, he is sent away by the Nazis due to his ethnicity. Shortly after everyone leaves the scene, Marcus returns and murmurs his love for Agnes, something he could never do when she was alive. Unfortunately, a few days later, a complete disaster mercilessly knocks into him. His only source of livelihood, the toy shop, is burned down by the Nazis. As if the final straw is taken away, Marcus plunges into depression and ultimately does the unthinkable. When little Oskar discovers the truth, he is heartbroken, not because he had any particular attachment to Marcus, but because Marcus's toy shop was the only place in the city that repaired drums. Devastated, Oskar turns to his second father, January, for support. However, Oskar is unaware that his reliance on January will eventually lead to the man's execution. Once again linked to Oskar's obsession with the tin drum, January works at the local post office where a collection of old drums is stored. Despite Oskar not being his biological son, January has developed a deep affection for the boy due to his love for Agnes. Despite the risk, January takes Oskar to the post office on a fateful day to get him a new drum. Unfortunately, the Nazis launch a surprise attack on the post office, leaving destruction in their wake. Many men are killed on the spot, and despite January and the others fighting valiantly, they are overpowered by the ruthless Nazis. Eventually, January and the remaining Polish survivors are taken outside and executed individually. Fortunately, Marcus manages to hide inside the post office long enough until a good Samaritan rescues him. With his mother and January gone, Oskar is left with no one but Alfred to live with. One day, Alfred hires a young maid named Maria. Oskar is instantly captivated by her beauty and constantly attempts to get close to her. However, Maria sees him merely as a child and treats him accordingly. Despite being the same age, Maria remains oblivious to this, due to Oskar's small stature. As time goes by, the young lady seems not able to resist Oskar. However, good times are not destined to last. One morning, Oskar wakes up to the sound of an argument in the living room. He rushes to investigate and is shot to find his father and Maria exchanging heated words while dressed provocatively. It turns out they have been having an affair all along, a truth that was concealed from Oskar. Witnessing the love of his life being belittled by his own father shatters Oskar's heart, but the situation is more complex than it seems. Maria genuinely loves Alfred and wants to be with him, but Alfred sees her as a mere object and has no intention of marrying her due to her age. That evening, as Maria cries alone in the kitchen, Oskar attempts to comfort her with the sound of his drum. Unfortunately, this only worsens her mood, and she pushes him away, referring to him as a crazy dwarf. Realizing her mistake, Maria apologizes to the young boy, but Oskar punches her in the stomach. 9 months later, Maria is heavily pregnant with Alfred's child. Oskar remains by her side, but it is evident that he is not happy. One day, he quietly takes hold of a pair of scissors and contemplates killing the unborn baby. However, Maria intervenes just in time to prevent the tragedy from unfolding. However, Things become different when the newborn baby arrives in the family. Oskar changes his attitude completely and starts caring for the baby as if it were his own. One night, as Oskar strolls through the streets of Warsaw, he encounters a familiar face, the dwarf leader he had met years ago at the circus. To Oskar's surprise, the dwarf now works as an entertainer for the Nazis. He suggests that Oskar join a group and travel to Paris to earn money together. Initially hesitant, Oskar expresses his reluctance to get involved with the Nazis. However, when the dwarf reveals the potential for earning large sums of cash, Oskar reluctantly agrees. These days become the best in Oskar's life. He forms strong bonds with his new friends who understand and accept him for who he is. Oskar no longer feels ashamed carrying his drum everywhere he goes. Additionally, he finds love in a woman named Ross, who accepts him unconditionally. Their affection for each other grows until tragedy strikes when American soldiers bomb the Nazi base. Oskar and his companions escape, but Ross tragically dies before Oskar. Devastated once again by the loss of those he loves, Oskar returns home seeking solace. Alfred is thrilled to have his son back, but Maria still harbors resentment from the punch Oskar delivered years ago. When Maria's child turns 3, Oskar presents him with a tin drum, mirroring the gift he received from his mother at the same age. Meanwhile, news of the little dwarf boy spreads rapidly in town, catching the attention of the authorities. 2 men arrive at Alfred's house, demanding that Oskar be handed over to a special medical center. Fearful, Alfred hides his son in the basement. Simultaneously, the war escalates to a point where walking the streets becomes dangerous. The Nazis are not only targeting Jews, but also innocent Polish civilians. This terrifies Alfred, as his family is of Polish descent despite his German nationality. To protect them, Alfred renovates the basement and conceals everyone there. Unfortunately, one day Soviet soldiers discover the hiding place. They interrogate each family member individually, unaware of the consequences. Oskar discreetly passes a Nazi badge to Alfred behind the soldier's back. Filled with fear, Alfred quickly swallows the badge to avoid being caught. However, when the soldiers discover his German identity, he is immediately executed on the spot. The following day, a wealthy and influential Polish man named Marius takes over Alfred's restaurant. He also organizes a funeral for the recently deceased chef, acknowledging the pain of losing a family member. During the funeral, he assists Maria and Oskar in handling now Fred's body. At this moment, Oskar realizes he has become an orphan and must now take care of himself. As a symbolic gesture of moving towards adulthood, he takes the first step by discarding his beloved drum, bidding it a painful farewell, as it has been his constant companion throughout his life. Suddenly, Oskar's stepbrother strikes him on the head with a rock, causing him to lose consciousness. Concerned, everyone rushes to his aid. Alarmed by the sight of blood flowing from his nose, fortunately, a fellow doctor reassures them that Oskar is fine and will begin to grow again. Remarkably, the part of his brain responsible for physical growth is miraculously healed after the impact. In the end, it is depicted that numerous families are emigrating to the West in pursuit of a brighter future after the merciless war. Maria, accompanied by her son and Oskar, hurriedly boards a crowded train. Meanwhile, Oskar's mother Anna chooses to remain in the city, preserving her dignity in solitude. When Oskar notices her presence, he screams in an attempt to halt the train, yet his powers have vanished due to his physical growth. Anna keeps staring at him until the train fades from sight. If the story's beginning is reversible, will little Oskar trade off his tin drum to his beloved family? Like and subscribe to watch more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on your notification. That really helps my channel. Thanks for watching.